to the cloud. Okay, cool. I'm sure people will continue to check in as we go on, but I think we have a few exciting things at least to cover in this community call. But before we kick off, any new members? I think maybe Chris, we haven't seen you around before. So if you want to introduce yourself, feel free. If not, we can just jump in.
I can introduce myself super briefly. My name is Chris. I work on Wireline and DXOS, and I've just launched a couple of tutorials of ceramic earlier this week, and I saw that there is a community call. I wanna try it out, and I wanna see like what's new and what the community is all about and what the community is building. And I think that's that. I attended like very briefly one community call. I think it was one of the first ones when there were like 30 people on the call or something like that. I can't remember. It was like, I think the lockdown already started, and like since then my timeline is like one blur, so I'm not sure when it was. Yeah.
Yes, it sounds like all of us, the last 6 months are just a blur. Well, good to have you. Cool. So yeah, you'll definitely get an update on all the things that have been happening. Anyone else want to share any interest? I think everyone else has been here before, or at least more frequently. Cool. So Joel, do you want to just share like a brief agenda of things that we want to cover, and then we can also add more topics to it if people see fit? Yeah.
So we have a few things that we wanted to kind of show off that we've been working on internally that kind of relates to and is on top of ceramic. And so that's three things basically. The first one is 3D Connect, which has been used with Treebox before, but now kind of can work with ceramic as well. And the other thing is an update on IDX and how that's coming along. So like the implementation of the library that allows you to use that, and kind of give you an update there. And then finally, we have been building like a node metric system for ceramic. So if you spin up your own ceramic node, you can have metrics on that. So that's the three main things that we want to cover. But once we've gone through all of that, happy to kind of talk about anything else as well. And maybe someone here has something that they want to share. So with that, I think, Zach, could you start sharing the 3D Connect demo?
And Joel, I'll just add to the list of things, Janko's update to ceramic documentation.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep, sounds good. So yeah, for 3D Connect, I'll show a demo of that. So we have this thing called Identity Wallet that does a lot of the, it's a library that does a lot of the management for a keychain for a DID. It allows you to do things like add authentication methods, do rotations, and it kind of manages all that stuff and drives your keys when you create an instance of it. 3D Connect is this thing that allows you to easily do it in the browser. So 3D Connect is running Identity Wallet in an iframe. And it allows you to permission keys from that keychain and have like a user flow for giving control to users. So any app that wants to, access that, they get this interface that they can make requests, and then the user basically prompts the user to, give access to the app to that particular part. So I'll share my screen here.
And a little history lesson. Zach was the creator of, was it UPort Connect back in 2016? It's like the first version of this. So 3ID Connect is like the 4.5-year iteration on UPort Connect.
Yep. So you see my browser here. This is a pretty simple demo. So I just have basically, I have 3D Connect set up here. I have basically access to my MetaMask extension. So I'll do a connect here. So yeah, this modal right here, this is 3D Connect. So it pops out this, asking me to give consent to allow this app access to some of my stuff connected to my DD, or like access to, signing stuff. So I can click continue. It's basically asking me if I didn't sign yet.
I guess we couldn't see your MetaMask. but
no. Let's see, it's asking me to sign. There we go. So I finished. So basically what happened in the background was I already had, so you can add different basically authentication providers to 380 Connect. Right now it's using my Ethereum account. And basically what it's doing is asking me to sign this. So I had added that Ethereum account as the auth method in the past. So I signed this message, which allowed me to then drive my keychain and identity wallet. So what it was doing there was just asking me to sign it since I didn't have it stored locally already. And then I was able to drive it, and here's my DID here. And if you're using this library, basically the interface you get is you can use 380 Connect and then get a DID provider. And then most of our other libraries or even other people want stuff using the standard interface would use this DID provider to make requests. So you can pass this into like IDX or like the DIS library or anywhere else. It's also managing account links. So I also made identity. So 380 Connect also made a public link to this Ethereum address. So anyone wanted to resolve stuff through my address about my DID could also do that. So just basically said to link this address is linked to this DID. Yeah, so that's the state of it now. It's kind of like a dev version of it. Going forward, it'll also manage like keychains for other DIDs and allow you to link different accounts to different ones, as well as provide like other auth methods to like accounts on different blockchains or like basically any kind of authentication method. All it has to do is be able to drive like some entropy to drive a seed and have like a method to create links. So eventually you'll be able to sign in with different blockchains, have different links, etc.
Zach, so you have this one account linked. In this version of 380 Connect that you're running here, can you link another account to it?
Yeah, we'll try that. So right now there's one account and you could link additional ones. So I'll switch to the MetaMask account. Boom. Yeah, so simple prompt right here. So now I'm going to link. It's asking if I want to. I already have an existing like keychain and DID inside my inside 380 Connect. It's asking if I also want to link this other address. This will allow me to authenticate with this account as well as other people to look up data to that address. So now it's asking me to sign the link, add it as auth method.
Yeah, very, very subtle. You can see the the little icon up there on my MetaMask, since we don't see the model.
Yeah. So now this is cool, and I added another account, and yeah, MetaMask asked me for two things. One was to sign a message that allows me to authenticate with it in the future, and then also sign a link that's basically saying I own this DID, so anyone else can verify that link. And then I drive the same DID here, yeah, and I have access to it, both those accounts.
Which is cool. Shared data across different accounts on the same network and soon to be different accounts on any network, which is sweet.
Yeah, so that's it for 380 Connect, at least for the demo.
And what's on the roadmap for this? So basically like up next is the ability, not immediately next, but conceptually next from a feature perspective is like the ability to manage multiple DIDs within the window. So you can have like, if you're signing in with an account that isn't linked to either of those DIDs, then you can like pick which one it gets linked with. So you have like more flexible account management in the window.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, support for, yeah, actually having support for these other chains and other public links across different accounts and stuff. Beyond that, eventually be like permissioning actual stuff in Ceramic as well. And you would keep track of those permissions and stuff. So you wouldn't necessarily give access to an entire keychain or entire bit of data.
It's like granular permissioning.
Partially, yeah.
And that's based on the same spec that is like roughly being discussed in that EIP, right, Joel?
Yeah, pretty much. So that allows us to kind of do permissions on decryption. So we could have like encrypted data sets within a IDX, and an app could request access to like 2 secret encrypted data sets, and the user could like grant permission to that. Yeah.
Very nice. All right, yeah, this is linking multiple accounts. We were just talking about this. It's like been a year plus in the making from an architecture standpoint. So excited to finally roll this out. This was like one of the entire reasons that even with 3-box, from the beginning, we used DIDs and not just like a public key, because the ability to have this flexibility in sort of abstracting individual accounts away and providing sort of a more unique universal identifier. All right, Joel, what's up next?
Yeah, so I guess we can continue with just showing the new generated docs for Ceramic. So basically, we have been long overdue with like generating docs for Ceramic. We have to just create like a quick kind of generated docs, and I think Janko will just give you an overview of that.
Yeah. Let me just share my screen. Yep. Can you see my browser?
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, this is the first, like the initial documentation that we have. It will be updated constantly. README is going to be updated as well. So yeah, without further ado, this is the documentation. This is just the overview that we had before of the Ceramic API, DID provider, HTTP client and daemon, and those like more yeah, abstract components, right? But the thing is, the documentation was generated using the type doc, and it's here. You can just browse and see what's the APIs of the components that we are using. Yeah, I will not go through all of the documentation here. I can actually just mention some of the things that we added and that can be useful. So Ceramic API that you're familiar with has one more functionality actually that you can use, and that's load document records. So now you're able to load all the records, the document records, and use the existing functionality. For example, create document from Genesis combined with apply record and recreate the documents on the network. So we extended that a bit. Yeah, I don't know if I need to go more into it.
Look at the HTTP client.
Yep. So HTTP client.
Yeah, so that's kind of nice that it shows you kind of the different methods and kind of gives you like the types and stuff on things. I mean,
Yeah. We're planning to actually to add some more types to Ceramic API. So just to remove these like ANIs that we use somewhere. So yeah, this will be more clear to you as well. Any questions?
What's next for documentation?
Yeah, it's not the future, but the thing is, like, what I'm working on is writing more thorough documentation on all the readmes and combining the generated documentation with Docker servers. So there's like immediate goals that we have, but we will constantly adapt our documentation here because we're constantly working on it.
Which is nice why it's auto-generated.
Yep.
I think I really like the TypeDoc, this view of TypeDoc, like when you get the methods and you get these things on the side. But then when you go to kind of the landing page or like the global page, it's kind of a bit confusing to like navigate, which is annoying.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so nice in here, but then when you're like in the main view, it's like hard to navigate.
Yeah.
We can get like the best of both worlds with Docker Server's plugin.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a really nice documentation that I think Sergey created for pinning. So that will be included here as well. Yeah, more or less all the documentation that we already have, we will be included here as well, as long as the API documentation. And with Docker servers is going to be definitely nicer.
Yep.
Cool.
Nice.
Any questions? If not, I'm gonna who's gonna be next?
Cool. So maybe Val, if you want to show the kind of metrics system that you've been working on.
Yeah, sure. All right, let me start sharing. Okay. Cool. So just like high-level overview to start. I just realized that I need to update this diagram with some recent changes, but it still gives like a pretty good overview of what we're doing to collect everything. So, all right. So kind of like starting on the right, we have like Ceramic running, can run either as a node or as a gateway. And we basically have a logging system. So the daemon just kind of logs like all activity that's going through. So you can see that output here. It's being logged to standard out. I'm gonna get rid of that. So we're also writing to files, like, so you can basically pass a flag into the CLI to say if you want to log to files. If I can find that. Yeah, right here, log to files. And then we have a default path that logs to, but you can also configure that path. So right now I have it going to user local var log ceramic. And then in here, we have all the logs that are coming through. So basically what happens is we're running this agent called Promtail. So this is all kind of a part of the Grafana stack. So Promtail reads these logs and labels them. And then from there, pushes them to Loki, which is just a log aggregator that is kind of like closely integrated into the Grafana dashboard. So that's the basic way that we're getting logs. We also have a ceramic log agent. So what this does is kind of specific to ceramic. This is kind of more general, but basically like we're also logging instances of doc IDs that are coming through basically any of these logs. So then this log agent kind of scrapes those doc IDs. And what it does is like keeps track of which doc IDs we haven't seen before. And it also looks at each doc ID in order to grab the tags on it. So what we wanted to do is say like, okay, like how many 3RDs are we seeing from the doc IDs that are coming through? So what this does is grabs that doc ID, then makes a request to IPFS to get the actual like the content payload of the Genesis record. We then look up those tags and see if 3ID exists in there. And if so, then we create a new log that just says, okay, this is the timestamp that we saw a new 3ID. That also gets fed into Promtail, labeled, and then ships to the web dashboard, which I'll show now. Pulling it over here, yeah. So yeah, just using Grafana for this, which is a really great tool for visualizations, mostly for time series stuff. But you can see that we're tracking right now, like how many requests a node is getting. Don't have any errors on my local one right now. And then like what endpoints are being hit and how many, like which endpoints are being hit the most. And also we're getting on the right here, you can see the updates that are coming through the pub subtopic. And then we have like just tracking what doc IDs are active. So active in this sense kind of means like which ones are, or basically how many doc IDs we're seeing at a given time. But then we're also keeping track of just unique doc IDs overall. So that's being tracked here. And then unique 3 IDs overall being tracked here. So yeah, that's pretty much the high level. And then this is all running in Docker Compose. So this is kind of the log output of Promtail, Loki working there. And then if I just like run any kind of command on the CLI, we'll see the logs being added here, that getting ingested into Promtail, and then the dashboard gets updated with that activity. It takes a second to propagate too, because it has to like aggregate everything. But usually what I do is just like send a few pings, create some content. Actually, I don't want to retype this, so create, and then like that. Cool. Yeah, and then refresh the dashboard, and we see like the activity coming through there. Yep. Yeah, so that's basically what we have so far.
And so anyone will be able to use this system or like, node plugins basically to observe like traffic to their own infrastructure as well as just network wide if they wanted. So like it's like can listen to the pub subtopic. So anything that's in that topic, they would be able to collect stats for.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're logging basically anything that comes through your node through PubSub. So basically this kind of gives you like a high level overview basically of what the network on a whole is doing. But then also some of these panels are just like specific to your node, for example, the requests that are coming in. Yeah, and the great thing about this is like because it's on Docker Compose, like anyone can just spin this up and immediately start monitoring. And it's like one important thing kind of that like we wanted was making sure this is separate enough from just running your node. So like you could use your own system for visualization or you can use this one. They're not super closely tied, which makes it super easy.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, thanks. Cool. Okay, so I guess the last thing from our side that we wanted to kind of look at is the updated IDX stuff. So Paul, do you want to give us an overview of that?
Yep. Can share my screen. It's the latest docs. So yeah, part of this sprint on IDX, we had a new release, V02. And that notably changes the way we handle schemas and definition in IDX. So in the previous version, developers needed to provide the schemas in the IDX constructor in itself. But now it's no longer needed because we are using constant built-in IDX to resolve to the schema, so to be able to validate the identity index document and other documents in IDX. And so instead, because we need the ceramic node to have these schemas and definitions, there is a separate tool that is the IDX Tools library that can be used to create this, to create all these contents for that are needed by IDX. So the flow, so now we have two libraries. So really the IDX one that is to be used by application at runtime, and the IDX Tools that is more as a developer dependency when building apps. And the way to use it is really to, so from IDX Tools, to publish the IDX config, so that contains the definition and schemas used by IDX. And that allows them to use these definitions. So here, for example, we can have a simple script that is gonna make sure Ceramic node has a definition and just define it for the app. So that then at runtime, just reusing the definitions that have been compiled at build time, we can start interacting with IDX using these definitions, and with everything being published to the node and being able to get resolved by the IDX instance. So that's one of the main changes in v02. Among other changes, we have a new, we have made change to the spec of the identity index to simplify things a bit. So now the new API for IDX are reflecting these changes. Notably, we've removed the support for tags, and because we want to do this in a bit of a different way. And also, part of this change, starting to use IDX tools, there is no more a method in IDX itself to create a definition. Instead, it's been moved to IDX tools here to have APIs to create and update definition, because it's really something that needs to be done during development or build time for an app rather than at runtime for users to interact with IDX. Yeah, I think that's the main changes so far. And up next, we are planning to release an IDX web library that is going to be for browser only and leveraging ThreadID Connect in order to authenticate the user and provide an easier way for application to just interact with IDX without having extra configuration to take care of. There, any question?
And just for some context for everyone on the line, I think there's some people that may be familiar with IDX and others that aren't. Would it be helpful for anyone to just get like a quick overview of what IDX is? Anyone on the line?
I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, I think it would be useful, especially with the new spec, because I don't know if we've actually showed the actual spec on the community call before.
Yeah, let me get to it.
I can probably pull it up also if you don't have it handy.
It should be here, right? In the PRs.
Yeah.
I think.
Can you use, yeah, and then just view the file?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a new IDX spec. I don't know, anything you want me to point at specifically? Maybe?
I think the graphic is probably easiest. That's further down. Wait, can you go back actually? So if you go back and click, wait, on files changed, I think we just went to the wrong view. And then the three dots, top right. Top right. No.
Sorry, which one?
Top right.
Top right.
Dots.
Sorry, I might not be seeing it with the.
It's under review changes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, sorry, it was hidden by them.
Yeah, view file. All right, so I think Yeah, there's the graphic.
Nope.
So the change that Paul talked about earlier is basically we've kind of simplified, and there's been like many changes. So before, IDX was kind of this hierarchical structure of like you had root index and you have like sub indexes. And I think before we talked about like that we had changed that. But now basically, and after that we had like kind of something like this, but also include tags and stuff like that, which we kind of thought was confusing when we were starting to like implement and formalize the spec. So what IDX is now is basically a per user index of definitions that maps to references. So a definition is something that's like created by an application. So an application would say like, hey, this is my definition. This is what it's called. This is like a short description of it. And here's like a schema that describes my data. And then here's like additional configuration. And then when a user comes to an application, the application says like, hey, this app needs this definition of a data set. And then the user says like, okay, you can have access to that. And either if it's the first time, then the application creates a reference for that user for that specific definition and data set. And if it's like a subsequent time, then you just give access to that data set and the reference for that user. So the really kind of distinction to kind of get here is that, so we see, for example, we have a basic profile definition in the middle to the left there. And the definition is created by a developer, but each individual user gets kind of their own instance, you could say, of a reference for that definition. So we see that user A has their own basic profile, and user B, or I guess user 1 and user 2 has its own kind of basic profile reference. And so in the most kind of basic use case, the actual data associated with the reference lives in like the ceramic document that is the reference. And this is true for like a basic profile or the keychain or your crypto accounts. But you might also have a setup where an app, as you see here with app A, defines a data set where the reference document actually points to a text file thread, which is stored. It basically allows you to store like different types of data in a differently structured way. And so you can use IDX to point to resources on Ceramic or point to resources that live on like central servers or private data stores or P2P databases and other places as well. So that's kind of the general idea of this new iteration of new design, I guess, of IDX. Anything you'd like to add, Paul or Senna?
Yeah, so I would just like zoom up for a sec, because I think that this was pretty clear. But generally, like the intent of IDX is to, so there's two main concepts that we should probably distinguish between. Like IDX itself is a developer library that lets you interact with and develop with the identity index data structure, but as well as like, perform operations on referential data from as the user is interacting with your app. So, when a user shows up, you can use the IDX library to update and edit their profile using the IDX library. So it's partly for like, creating these definitions and references and this data structure and adding resources to it, but it's also actually for interacting with the resources. So it's kind of, you can think of it like a, like a developer framework for building with decentralized identity and user-centric data sets. But the identity index structure itself is really what's defined in the CIP. And I mean, the main intent here is to make data discoverable regardless of the application that first created the data or the location at which the data resides. So should be able to provide user-centric discovery and management of information in an interoperable, cross-contextual, way, if that makes sense. And it's all obviously like the identity index structure itself is mapped to from the DID document. So by resolving a DID document, you can resolve the identity index structure. And then from that structure, you can resolve all of the resources if they're public, and if they're encrypted, you could request access to them using that path specification that Joel talked about earlier, which is sort of facilitated by 3ID Connect and Identity Wallet. Joel, did I miss anything there?
I think that was good.
Cool. Now, Paul, anything more specific?
No, I think that's good. It's a good, yeah, good intro to how you can use IDX.
Guys, I have a question. Oh, Sergey there. Have I heard it right that IDX library only supports browser environment now?
No, sorry if that was confusing. We are gonna have a new library called IDX Web that provides the same functionality as IDX, actually extends it, but is a bit, would be using 3ID Connect so that it should be easier for web apps to interact with IDX because they would be leveraging 3ID Connect and kind of browser-specific functionality. But the main IDX library is cross-platform. You can use it directly in the browser if you want, or on with using Node. It's just that IDX Web would make the web use cases a bit simpler.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you. Sorry.
Cool.
And James, I know that you were thinking about some of these, some similar stuff. How does this iteration on the IDX model sound?
Yeah, I'm liking it. I think there's stuff here I can definitely work with, which is exciting. I'll be digging into this a lot in the next few weeks for sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and we're working as another work stream. You know, we're working to begin supporting other network accounts through like 3ID Connect and authenticating with that stuff. So I think it would be good to get a better understanding and direction. Like I think the most simplest integrations are, you know, EOAs that are like Ethereum, but on a different network, like a Polkadot account. It's probably like super simple. And I imagine there's just like a bit more complexity with the flow contract accounts.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit more complex, I guess, but from like everything I've seen, it's probably still quite doable. And we have a person that's like just itching to kind of like do this sort of thing with stuff. So we have somebody that's probably pretty keen to work on that from our side too. So yeah, things are looking good, I think. Be interesting to see.
Okay, sweet. Any other questions? I mean, I'm sure that there's like, you know, a million things we could talk about. Community happenings, recent presentations. You know, obviously we're sponsoring ETH Online. So another thing to mention is we have a couple bounties up for pretty general things. And, you know, we encourage anyone that's interested in even just like poking around with ceramic to just take a look at those, because even if you're doing it in your spare time, it could provide some direction. So we have those available. Excitingly, some of the work that Sergey has been doing has been progressing. Sergey, do you want to talk about that work at all? I know you and Joel just had a call about that this morning, so it might be repetitive, but perhaps others would like to hear about it.
Well, that's not about being repetitive. It's about having the environment shut down. But well, if you bear with me for a few minutes, or if somebody else could talk for a few minutes, so that I could start the environment up, would be great.
Cool. Yeah, and Sergey will basically demo like linking a Filecoin account to a 3ID, and then being able to like, I don't know if it will be the full demo, but there's the ability to save like authenticated files to Filecoin from a DID, which is like really cool, and provides like a layer of identity on the Filecoin ecosystem, which is great. But yeah, so I mean, besides hackathons, what else? Danny, is he still on? Yes, he's dialed in from his phone. Danny, what else do we have going on? I think that I'm probably missing.
Yeah, I'm here, but like catching every other word with some internet issues. So the questions like what else is happening in the ecosystem?
Yeah, what else do we have going on besides ETH Online?
ETH Online, we recently were part of some of the other conferences and hackathons, so Near and Flow. Coming up, we're doing some stuff with folks in a few of the Gitcoin and Tachyon accelerator programs. So there's a bunch of stuff using Ceramic in a variety of ways. And then I dropped for quite a while, so I don't know if you guys already talked about this, but I think some of the collaborations with Textile, and then also so people just kind of starting to build on their own around using Ceramic for an IDX to enable like comments and just public information and governance tools. So all that stuff's quite early, but there's a whole, like, I don't know, 8 to 10 projects now that are starting to look at using that in a serious way.
Very nice. Oh, yeah, we're also doing, I mean, some work with Textile to continue to deepen the integration between Ceramic and Textile. You know, using like the IDX structure for identity, using DIDs for identity, the IDX structure for data and information management, and sort of like connecting IDX to the Textile data stores like we had in that visual. We're also working with them to push their data stores to be able to handle some new use cases, which should be exciting for users of Ceramic and IDX, because now you can build cooler apps with peer-to-peer data stores and stuff. So that's going nicely too.
Yeah, one thing to kind of mention on, I guess, more specific level there is like, so right now to use Textile, you as a developer or kind of as a developer for the user needs to like manage the keys for a Textile thread, and the keys in a Textile thread is just like a public ED25519 key, which kind of is hard if you're not like deep in that stuff, and it's not like always super easy to kind of, oh, this is how I do that, and this is how I give that to the user. So with Ceramic and IDX, we can kind of have a way of provisioning keys for Textile threads in a way which you can like basically like invite a DID to a thread, and then the key is kind of generated and kept within your IDX. So it kind of simplifies the whole flow of kind of how you interact with these Textile threads.
All right, Yanko, what do you have here? Oh, Playground. Yeah, so that's another fun one. Also a fun name. So Playground is, if you've ever used 3box, we have a thing like the 3box services box, which is a very long but descriptive name, although it uses box twice. And so Playground is effectively the equivalent of that for Ceramic. It's just like a all-in-one, you know, spin up the entire Ceramic ecosystem of services and nodes and things on your local environment. So you could just develop on it, test with it, making the whole end-to-end development process easier rather than needing to spin up each service individually and manage all of those things. So preset configurations, right, Yanko? Anything to add there?
No, Yeah, that's more or less it. What you said. So it'll be definitely easier for devs to just bootstrap with one click all the environments with the anchoring service and everything, and just to have it there.
Cool. Sergey, how we doing?
Pretty good. Well, that part about Falcon linking, it's there on GitHub. Here is a bit different stuff. Like that was kind of a long time ago, and that's totally different story. How and when, and it's viable in which way to integrate into this stuff. And this stuff is, well, it's Powergate proxy that abstracts over Powergate UUID. That means nothing. Well, it links it to 3ID. Links is a loser term. It allows you to log into Powergate with 3ID. Well, I lost that text that described the flow, but overall, it's really like logging in with DID with JWT tokens and stuff like that, so that Powergate could be accessed, well, maybe with from third-party services on behalf of your DID. Well, it's a quite basic demo app just to, well, present something meaningful. And well, what it really does is links that DID to Powergate token. I'm kind of really confused that I could not use vanilla 3ID from npm, but well, anyway, this code that works here inside behind the scenes and that generates this DID, it's kind of the same as 3ID. So, well, whenever it finally works, it would be like uncommenting a few things, and yeah, it pins the file. Basically this, well, with the graphics, I mean, the chart, it would be nicer because what happens behind the scene is, here we have two basically entities. One entity is this browser thing. Another entity is a server that manages a token that's linked to the ID. When I clicked connect, or I can do it right again, here, what happens here is that page inside the browser, it asks for MetaMask, it asks for, well, effectively DID using Ceramic, and then it starts a signature dance between the backend stuff and this page. That is, well, the server presents a sign challenge to the DID, then DID signs that challenge with whatever private key linked, and then the backend issues authentication token that's signed by the backend. So that token could be used by that page or maybe other servers on behalf of the ID. Yeah, basically that's it. I mean, it's a lot more fun if you see what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, maybe for some context. So I don't know if many people here are familiar with Powergate. So Powergate is basically this system that runs both like a Falcon node and an IPFS node. So with Powergate, you can basically get a Web2 kind of API where you send an IPFS file, and then Powergate takes that file and like backs that up into a Filecoin. So what's really cool about this demo is really kind of that you can authenticate with your DID, and then to like a proxy that kind of does the authentication with Powergate. So you can like authenticate to Powergate with the DID, and then use that authentication to kind of back up files in Filecoin. And I think the thing we wanted to add here also is kind of when you do that authentication, the Powergate will kind of provision a Filecoin address to your specific user. So if you want to actually back up files, you would need to like send some file token or fill token, I don't know, to that address. And once you've done that, you can use that authentication with the DID to use like backup files in Filecoin. So that's super exciting.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Essentially, if done properly, like with UI and stuff like that, it's like connecting your Google Drive or Dropbox account to an application. But well, how this goes, it's a bit reverse. It's an application that logs into person's file storage on top of Filecoin.
Right. Yeah. So the cool thing also that Sergey told me about before was that you can actually store a reference to this Powergate proxy within your IDX, which means that whichever application you go to, that application can request access to your kind of Powergate data that's stored on Filecoin, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And so many uses. My head is just kind of like going over here, but okay. Yeah, that's great. So 5 minutes left. Want to be mindful of time. Any questions, other things that people are interested in learning about or clarifying? Other things you would like to see us do but aren't doing?
No, just to say thanks for walking us through all of those things. All very impressive. It's the application in the big wide world that appeals to me, of course. It's not what it is, but how it manifests. So yeah, be interesting to see what's made of it all.
Yeah, I always find these sessions so helpful as well. I mean, there's a lot of docs that your team produces, and I find that these sessions are really good at like concreting ideas and concepts and sort of seeing them instead of just like reading them in the docs. Yeah.
Thanks for the feedback. Yeah, it's like, always wondering if they're actually helpful or if it's just another chance for our team to come together and do demos. But I'm glad it's helpful, James. We'll keep it up.
Don't stop doing it. It's so, and the problem with this is we're sitting here on mute and we're going, yeah, thanks for that. But it's so hard to give that feedback on Zoom without unmuting and interrupting the flow by going. And to be honest, I get a lot of stick taken out of this. Now, I don't mind doing this. I don't have an embarrassment gene, right? So I'm fine doing that sort of thing. But other people don't like jazz hands. And so you basically end up hosting a call for 60 minutes with no feedback. So congratulations on just battling through.
Yeah, no, you all do such a good job. And like, as I'm now having to write more and more docs, I have so much more respect for your team in that regard. There's the resources you guys provide are the resources you all provide are top quality and top notch. So very helpful.
Thank you. Can't take credit. That's all these guys and girls. All right. With that, we'll see you all online. See you next time. don't hesitate to reach out. Anyone, as if you need help, or James, if you're poking around, let us know what we can clarify too. If as you're going through, it's like, this doesn't quite make sense. Useful feedback.
Yep, will do.
All right. Until next
Thanks
time.
so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Bye.
See ya.
Yep.